All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's check our agenda for this evening. So as usual, we'll start off with some announcements, then we'll have our recommended reading, which is a little different tonight. We'll have our affirmation of the day, then we'll do introductions and victories. We'll listen to an audiobook excerpt. Tonight we're reviewing chapters 4 and 5 from my book, Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. We'll come back for our topic discussion, take a break at about 8:30, and then we'll come back, work on our assignment, and do some Q&A and wrap it up by 9 o'clock. Reminder that today's workshop is being recorded and will be available on the BeBiggerToday.com website and YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. Please feel free to stop your video or mute your microphone if you do not wish to be seen or heard on the recording. Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, first edition, author-signed paperbacks. They're going fast. Get your copy at BeBiggerToday.com/book. This is a limited time offer. Workshop 20 saves you 20% at checkout. Just enter that discount code, and then I will also sign this for you. So just let me know who you'd like me to sign it to. Get your copy at BeBiggerToday.com/book. And while you're there, check out a copy of my New York City photo book, New York Cityscapes. This is a collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City area photographers. Photographs of the skyline and all the iconic landmarks that people know and love in the New York City area. Get your copy at BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore for $16.95. I'll sign that as well. And my audiobook is available for pre-order. Still working on this, but we'll have it done someday soon. It's on sale for $9.99, and it's unabridged, going to be close to 10 hours. Get your copy at BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore. And it comes with a full money-back guarantee. If you don't love it, just let me know, and I'll send you your money back, but I know you're going to love it. And we have merch, hats and T-shirts. Save 20% by using the discount code MERCH20 at checkout at BeBiggerToday.com/merch. And my original art and photography is also available on the BeBiggerToday.com website. These are my original landscapes, cityscapes, and abstract images. They come in 4 different sizes. They're professionally framed. They are canvas, gallery-wrapped canvas prints. And instead of the usual commercial, I'm going to show you guys one. So this is actually the cover for the book. And the interesting thing about all these photos is they are the abstracts. They're all based on my original landscape or cityscape images. What I do is I bring them into Photoshop and I manipulate them and create these abstract works of art. They're really quite stunning. It's beautiful canvas. I don't know if you can see this. It's a little bright. They're beautiful canvas, gallery-wrapped canvas, as I said. They come in 4 different frame sizes and colors, 3 different colors, black, white, or brown. And they're actually gorgeous. They're really beautiful. So check them out on the website. They're all signed by me, and they come ready to hang. Got your hardware and everything ready to go. All right, so BeBiggerToday.com/art-photography, and get yours there. And we have refrigerator magnets. These are also available on BeBiggerToday.com/merch. These are my original photos on refrigerator magnets. They make great holiday gifts or birthday gifts or little tchotchkes for your refrigerator. They're actually really high quality magnets in my original photos. So check it out, BeBiggerToday.com/merch. And I am available for one-on-one coaching and or corporate consulting. So if you are a creative person, a writer, a photographer, or an artist, or if you have a company and you would like me to come and speak to your sales team or your management team on how they can all be bigger than they think they are, reach out to me through the website at BeBiggerToday.com, and we can talk about what that entails. Also, a reminder, I have a new podcast interview that went up last week. This is on the Fit for Joy podcast website. You can actually find this photo on my homepage of bebiggertoday.com. Click on that photo. It will take you right to the podcast interview with Valeria. This was a great, it's about an hour, I think, 90 minutes. About an hour. And we had a great conversation about everything. So I like her title, Surpass Your Limit, Elevate Your Mind. So check that out. Again, you can find the link on the homepage of my website. And finally, I'm accepting donations. I'm looking for support to continue to offer the workshop at no charge and keep it open to everyone. Suggested donation of $5 per week or $20 per month. You can send your contribution directly to me at paypal.me/Peter Alessandria. That's all one word. I know most of you guys have sent in your donations. Thank you so much for your support. And that's it. So that's great. So I really appreciate people who are helping to keep the workshop going financially. So thank you so much for your support. All right, so tonight we're going to start with, we actually have two recommended readings. One is a recommended listening. Now this is one of my favorite YouTube channels, and in terms of meditation music, this is the go-to guy. So Metaverse Music, the best place to find them is on YouTube, and he puts out a new piece every week. It's usually about an hour long, and the guy's name is Brian Larson, and his music is just amazing. All right, this is the best meditation music that I have found online or anyplace else. So I highly recommend it. He has dozens of songs up there already, and as I said, he puts out a new one every week. So I love all his stuff. He has a pretty big following. There's a good commentary discussion on a lot of the songs as well. A lot of them are, well, as I said, they're great for meditation. They're great for if you want to go to sleep to music, it's great for that. Anything that you want to do in a kind of calm, inviting means or method, this is great. So I highly recommend his music. It's Metaverse Music on YouTube at Metaverse. Just do the search, you'll find it there. And then this is actually going to be the recommended reading for next week, but I'm telling you guys about it this week because next week, Karina is actually going to be on the workshop. So she's going to be a guest speaker next week on the workshop. She's going to tell you about her story, and she's going to lead us through a process. And this book it's a great little book. It's all poetry. And so she's going to read some of her poems, and then she's going to tell you about her story, tell us about her story, and then, as I said, lead us through a process. So be here next week. You don't want to miss that. And in the meantime, you can check out her book. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Audible if you want to listen to it. She also sells copies. I think she sells them on her website. So check it out. Remember, next week, tell your friends. It's going to be a special workshop. Karina's going to be here to address and to speak to us next week. All right, so our affirmation for the day. Whatever I can believe, I can achieve. Now, we've talked a lot about monitoring our thoughts, about consciously and deliberately entertaining thoughts that serve us. Remember, our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our words and actions, and our words and actions lead to the outcomes that we experience. Positive thoughts, positive feelings, positive words and actions, positive outcomes. So the power of belief. So we've talked about this a lot, but I think this really kind of brings it all together for me. Whatever I can believe, I can achieve. Now, most of us, I'll speak for myself, most of my life I've had such a habitual, negative, non-productive stream of consciousness, stream of thinking, that it's taken some time to reprogram that. And we talk about this every week. We can reprogram through things like affirmations, vision statement, guided visualizations, a vision board, and or a mind movie, amongst other things. as well as just kind of listening to positive life-affirming literature, or reading positive life-affirming literature, listening to positive life-affirming programs. And what we're doing is we're reprogramming. Now, our beliefs really run our life. And the problem is many of us have very negative beliefs about ourselves, who we are, what we're capable of achieving in life, how much we deserve from life, and so on. So what I'm suggesting, and what I've been suggesting all along, is that we begin to shift those thoughts and build beliefs. Now, it's really interesting, if you're familiar with law of attraction, Esther Hicks and Abraham. Abraham says that a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. It's a thought that we keep thinking over and over and over again. That's what creates beliefs. And most of the time we're doing this unconsciously, and most of the time we're doing it in a very negative way. It's all about our limitations. It's all about how things are not going to work out. It's all about how people are not going to like us. It's all that negative stuff. And by affirming that over and over and over again, we're building beliefs. Now, why is that important? Well, it may take a while to turn the ship. It may take a while to shift that self-image, to shift those core beliefs about ourselves from the negative to the positive. All right? But it's really important to begin to work on that pretty much every day, because whatever I can believe, I can achieve. And the opposite is also true. It's going to be very difficult to create the life we want if we don't believe that we can achieve it, if we don't believe it's possible for us, if we don't believe that we deserve to have that in our lives. All right? So belief is directly related to achievement. And it could be anything. You know, it could be a new relationship. It could be more money in the bank. It could be better health. It could be a new career. We have to bring our conscious, deliberate thought processes in alignment with that goal, what we want to achieve. And we have to get to the point where we believe it's possible for us to achieve it. Now, the thing I said couple weeks ago when we were talking about this, the most important thing to do is stay out of the how. We don't have to know how it's going to happen. We just have to know what and why. So what we want to achieve and why we want to achieve it. The minute we start thinking about how it's going to happen, that's when the mind takes over and all the negative thoughts come up, because the reality is if we knew how to do it, we'd probably already have it in our lives. So we want to stay out of the how, focus on what we want, why we want it, generate that positive belief in ourselves and in the process, and that will carry us to where we want to get in life. All right? So our affirmation, whatever I can believe, I can achieve. All right, this is the portion of the workshop for people to either introduce themselves if they're new, or if they would like to share a victory or celebration from the past week. So this is your opportunity to be bigger than you think you are, to shine, and say hi. So is there anybody who would like to say hello or share a victory or a celebration from the past week? Anybody?
I don't know. Do I have a signal?
Yes, Dee Dee.
Anyway, this is one of my clients. I have my new clients. One has $1 million view of Puget Sound, and the other client has a $5 million view, panoramic view, not just a view. These are panoramic views of Lake Washington. And I recently received employer-sponsored benefits, medical insurance, dental, vision, which was great because my state-sponsored was going to run out. And I was able to retire a $15,000 loan this month. So I'm feeling really big, and I just love being here with you. Thank you. I attribute it all to you, this process in spiritual recovery.
All right, great. Thanks, Dee Dee. Woohoo! Good job. I really, really, really love to hear that. So that's being bigger than you think you are, taking care of yourself, $1 million views. I mean, I love all of that. And that's the kind of thing that can shift our thinking. So it's great that you're surrounding yourself with that kind of environment. So thank you for that. Anybody else want to say hi, share a victory? Let us know you're there. Barb, is that you?
Can you see me? saying hi. Hi,
Hi.
Victory. I know I wish I did have one, but I keep on saying, I keep on showing up. That's what it's all about. But victories. I mean, life is a lot smoother than it used to be, especially, since since we've been doing this. I definitely have this on my mind. I am a lot calmer. Even every once in a while, somebody say, you sound very, like that. I think I used to be like that all the time. So that surprised me when somebody said it, but I was, like that about a subject. But in general, I'm a lot calmer and happier, and I'm taking to heart what you said. I need to think of something that's gonna stir me up. So I need to work on that. When you said you got to ask, why do you want to do it? What do you want to do? Why you want to do it? How are you going to do it? I don't have any answers to those questions yet. I have to find out what I want to do.
All right, great. Well, listen, I mean, I'll take that as a celebration. I'll take that as a victory, because it's important. It's important that you're even thinking in those terms, because it sounds like before you weren't even thinking of that.
All right. And then another thing, it's so funny. I was listening to the song and I was getting all like, woo, woo, woo. So, Caitlin, so I'm visualizing, and Caitlin's going to have a Sweet 16 party, and I'm visualizing putting that song on and like Richie and I dancing, choreographing it to that song. And I went, I would love it. And I would think he would, he would be so cool at it too. But I think my granddaughter would kill me in front of all her friends. So, but I was visualizing it. You could picture dancing to that song, right? And singing it to somebody.
Yeah.
So maybe not now, maybe someday.
Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, you may want to run it by her first, but.
Oh, I definitely will. I'll see. I know she's going to say no, but I will. I will definitely run it by her first. Say, you want Richie and I to do kind of a, what do you call it? A parody or a choreographed? You see them all the time. They do them at weddings and parties. I just think it would be so funny.
So for anybody who wasn't at the on the workshop live, we play a song at the beginning, middle, and end of the workshop. The song is "Love My Life" by Robbie Williams. It's a very uplifting, very positive, inspiring song. And apparently Barb likes it enough that she wants to play it for her granddaughter at her upcoming Sweet 16. So that's great.
And I think everybody's laughing up. Yeah, like, sure. No 16-year-old is going to want her grandma to do it. But I will run it by her. I'll let you know what exactly she says.
Yeah, and you could, and you can just
let her listen to it.
Yeah, let her listen to it, but let the DJ know that it's something you're thinking about, and make sure they have this song.
Okay.
Unless you want to put on your phone and bring your phone. But I think it's a great song. I mean, I don't know why, why.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know why she wouldn't want you to play it, but 16-year-olds are a little fickle, so.
Ooh,
I don't want to get in the middle of that one. I'll let you guys work that out.
Okay, but I will let you know.
All right, great. Thank you, Barb.
Pierre, can I try again on the view? Look at this view.
Wow.
I don't know if you can see. This is my view, and it's kind of like a bird sanctuary too. He's got all these, well, I won't go there. Lots of bird feeders, but this is the Puget Sound, so that's a panoramic. And I'm on the porch. Okay, thanks. The other view wasn't so good. Thanks.
Wow, that's gorgeous. I love it. I still got snow in my backyard, and it's horrible. It's gray and dreary. We had more snow yesterday.
Come visit.
Will do. Great. All right, great. Thanks, Dee Dee. Anybody else want to say hi? Share a victory? Okay, so let us move on then. So we are continuing our review. This week we're going to be reviewing chapters 4 and 5 from my book, Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. Chapter 4, From FEAR to LOVE, and Chapter 5, Decision Making and the Desire to Feel Better. So we're going to play the audiobook excerpt now, and when we come back, we'll open it up for some discussion.
Chapter 4,
From Fear to Love. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Franklin D. Roosevelt. As the above quote from FDR reminds us, there's only one thing that stands between us and everything we want in life: fear. Fear can derail a career, end a relationship, or even terminate someone's life. As we'll see in this chapter, fear is not caused by something outside of us. Instead, like all feelings, it's the result of who we think we are. This means all it takes to alleviate our anxieties, worries, and concerns is a new idea about ourselves. Of course, once again, this falls under the heading of simple but not easy. Yet, until we understand the real source of the problem, it will be difficult, if not impossible, for us to change. There are a couple of popular acronyms associated with FEAR. One is false evidence appearing real. The other is F everything and run. Cute, right? While both are worth thinking about, let me give you my own definition of fear. Fear is an emotional response to a perception of ourselves as powerless and/or unlovable in a given situation. How's that for a mouthful? Let's break it down. An emotional response. You've probably heard it said that emotion equals energy in motion. Think about when you feel good emotionally. Do you have more energy? Is it easier to get stuff done? Compare that to when you're not feeling so good emotionally. Lower energy, tougher to get moving. Thus, it can be said that there's a direct correlation between our emotional and physical states. Since it takes energy to accomplish things in life, it's good to know that our energy levels are affected by how we're feeling emotionally. We can improve our physical state by changing our thinking and thus our feelings. Generally speaking, fear is a paralyzing emotion. When we're gripped by worry, anxiety, dread, etc., it can be very difficult to take action or get things done. The physiological effects of fear in the body mimic the emotional ones. We hold our breath, tense our muscles, our stomach tightens, and we move more slowly. There's a general contraction in the body, occasionally accompanied by a marshaling of energy in anticipation of having to run, hide, or fight. Footnote 17. While fear is behind the fight or flight response, with those few exceptions where a burst of energy is needed to survive, fear mostly shuts us down. Back to the text. From an evolutionary perspective, this response is quite adaptive. When an animal is in danger, being prepared in this way can save that animal's life. But what may have served us in our ancestral past probably has less value today. While there are certainly potential pitfalls associated with life in the modern world, it's unlikely we'll be confronted with the same or even similar dangers that our forebears faced. Thus, true fight-or-flight situations, at least as measured by what primitive man had to deal with, are quite rare these days. Yet the limbic brain in modern humans remains as vigilant as ever. It's constantly on the lookout for danger, except instead of scanning the plains of the Serengeti, it scans our home, work, and social environments. And instead of finding woolly mammoths or saber-toothed tigers, we're set on edge by an encounter with our boss, mother-in-law, or the IRS. When I was a young attorney and a senior partner walked into my office unexpectedly, he or she may as well have been a saber-toothed tiger or woolly mammoth. No offense to any of the senior partners at the firms I worked for. Obviously, in the appropriate situation, the fight-or-flight response can be a lifesaver. But most of us enter fight-or-flight mode without ever being in real physical danger. This results in the response being way overutilized. False positives release stress hormones into our bodies, which, over the long term, can damage our tissues, organs, and immune system. Fear versus caution. For this and other reasons, I like to remind people there's a difference between fear and caution. Caution means a common-sense approach to life. We take reasonable precautions based on an objective assessment of the situation. Caution says look both ways before crossing the street, get all the information before making that investment, wear a safety belt when driving, and so on. It's a rational response to the vicissitudes of life and represents a reasonable and proportional attempt to mitigate risk. Fear, on the other hand, is generally neither rational nor proportional. Whether paralyzing or adrenalizing, fear is often an intense reaction that has the potential to do more harm than good. Fear can take many forms, including anxiety, terror, panic, worry, concern, foreboding, dread, and so on. We can spend a lifetime, metaphorically speaking at least, hiding under the bed in one or more areas of our lives because of some irrational form of fear. Footnote 18. Developmental psychologists tell us children are born with only two fears, fear of falling and fear of loud noises. These reactions make sense from an evolutionary standpoint. But what's important is that this means all our other fears are learned, i.e., they are not natural. Fear of criticism, fear of rejection, fear of shame or humiliation, even the fear of death are all learned responses. The good news is this means they can be unlearned. Back to the text. Chapter 5. Decision-making and the desire to feel better. I feel good. James Brown. We talked previously about taking responsibility for our actions and reactions, as well as using our true power to create the lives we want. In this chapter, we're going to look at the motivation behind all our choices and decisions. We're going to reveal the true reason for why we do what we do and want what we want. I'm okay, you're okay. In his best-selling 1992 book, Homecoming, the late John Bradshaw said every child needs to know two things. One, that their parents are okay, and two, that the child matters. Both arise out of the child's survival instincts. If either isn't met, the child may not survive, and at some level the child knows this. A lack of okayness in one or both parents can trigger feelings of anxiety in the child. Likewise, a sense that their parents don't love them obviously may also cause emotional and/or psychological issues for children. Either or both these situations may be compounded by a parent who scolds, shames, or criticizes the child. When the people who are supposed to be protecting us are the ones we need protection from, a profound sense of fear, anxiety, and defensiveness can follow. In my own case, I spent a good part of my life trying to escape these childhood feelings through codependent relationships and addictive compulsive behaviors. In terms of our parents not being okay, the reality is all people have issues. Because a child's survival is at stake, he or she will naturally attempt to compensate for a parent's dysfunction. This compensation can take many different forms, as we'll discuss below. Likewise, even the most healthy parents can sometimes send mixed messages as to how much they love their children. In the last chapter, we spoke about unconditional love. In my opinion, nowhere is a need for unconditional love greater than in the parent-child relationship. This is especially true when the child is acting inappropriately. It's my feeling that to the extent a parent can positively esteem a child, especially when they least like who the child is being, to that extent, the child will develop a robust sense of self. Yes, children need healthy boundaries around their behaviors, especially when those behaviors are potentially harmful to themselves or others. But the child doesn't need to be shamed, punished, or ridiculed to do this. This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. So far, my examples of making choices to feel better have been pretty obvious and fairly easy to digest. But we're talking about a continuum of feeling better. This may mean we're starting off on the low end of the scale, the low end of the scale. That is, we're trying to feel better in a really bad situation. The parent that screams at their child at the shopping mall may not feel good while they're doing it, but they're still doing what they do to feel better. The child may be making a scene which the parent associates with embarrassment, or the child may be acting in a way which jeopardizes their own or someone else's safety. How the parent sees themselves, and by extension how they see the child, will determine how they react. If they see themselves as overwhelmed, powerless, or unable to control their child, then in an attempt to reduce their discomfort, i.e. feel better, they may lash out at the child. Now, the parent isn't bad or even wrong in this situation. They're just being human. To not lash out at a child under such circumstances may require a very high level of awareness and/or self-control. Yet by understanding why we do what we do, we can begin to do things better. For instance, the parent, being more aware of the true nature of the problem, can come up with a plan as to how they'll act in the future if the situation comes up again. In the long run, if we want to be better people and live happier lives, learning to control our emotions and consciously select our response in each situation is of vital importance. Planning things out in advance is one way to do this. And even if we don't have time to put together an advanced plan, taking a pause and remembering the problem is always how we see ourselves can help change how we react in the moment. We talked about the difference between reacting and responding earlier in this book. Sometimes taking a pause and bringing some conscious awareness to what we're about to say or do may be all that's needed to achieve a more positive result. As with all our actions and reactions, a decision about what will feel better has to pass through the internal filter of who we think we are. So again, in the unruly child example, if I see myself as powerless in the face of my child's outbursts, I'm going to have one reaction. If I see myself in a more positive way, I'll have a different one. Thus, whether it's my kids, my job, or just my drive to work, it may be helpful to take some time when things are not so heated to envision myself in a new and empowered way. All right, so that's the audiobook for tonight, and that was a review of chapters 4 and 5. I'm going to talk about some of those topics now. In fact, let's just jump in with this. So starting chapter 4, so my definition of fear is an emotional response to perception of ourselves as powerless and or unlovable in a given situation. Right, that's kind of a mouthful. So in the book, I didn't go through the whole thing in the audiobook tonight, but in the book I break it down. I talk about each one of those aspects. I'll just talk about them briefly. An emotional response, emotion, energy in motion. Negative thoughts lead to negative feelings lead to negative words and actions, lead to negative outcomes. So a negative emotional response to life, we have reduced energy. Fear, I always say fear equals resistance. So if you're having trouble, and I always say for me, procrastination is just a 5-syllable word for fear. So if it's tough to get going, if it's tough to get stuff done, if it's tough to take action, great question is usually, what am I afraid of? What am I resisting? And that starts the process. As long as I just think I'm lazy, or I just think, the economy is bad, or I just think, whatever I think, if I'm not really addressing the problem, which in my case at least is usually negative fear-based thinking, then I'm not going to have the energy to take the action I need to get going on stuff. Perception of ourselves, we've been talking about this from day one. Perception is how we see ourselves. Who do we think we are? It's that internal process. It's a self-image that we carry around, usually from childhood, usually negative. It's how we see ourselves. And the good news is perceptions can be changed. As powerless and or unlovable. Powerless, in this definition, the way I use it, it's similar to helpless, similar to I'm not going to be okay, I'm not going to be able to take care of myself, not going to get what I think I want or need in this situation. And so it's that perception of myself as helpless, powerless, not going to be able to take care of myself, that creates the negative feelings. And then again, the negative feelings usually, if it's fearful, turns into resistance. So I don't take action, I don't take healthy risks, I don't move my life forward in one area or another, based on this idea that I'm not going to be okay, I can't take care of myself, or unlovable in a given situation. Unlovable, again, I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, they're not going to like me, I'm unworthy, those negative self-images that say that we're not lovable. There's something about us that's not acceptable, that's not okay. And a perception of ourselves as unlovable, well, that can create fear as well, because it means I'm going to be rejected, it means I'm going to be criticized, it means I'm going to be embarrassed, humiliated, shunned, all that stuff, and that creates the fear, that creates a negative feeling, so we don't go to that social event. We don't ask that person out on that date. We don't, take a healthy risk in terms of building relationships with other people. And it affects our work life. If I don't think I'm good enough at my job, I'm going to be worried about, getting reprimanded at work, getting written up, getting made an example of, all that. It translates to every aspect of our lives. And so it's those negative thoughts and beliefs about ourselves that generate the fear. Now, the thing I say here, and I say this over and over again, is fear is usually situational. It's usually based on a particular situation. Yes, we may go through life with a certain level of anxiety, or dread or foreboding or whatever, but the acute feelings of fear that we experience are usually situational. And as I always say, the situation is never the problem. The problem is always and only how we see ourselves in that situation. And that's good news because we often can't change the situation, but we can always change how we see ourselves. All right, number 2, no one has the power to upset or hurt me unless I give them that power. Now again, this relates to the idea of that I'm unlovable, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy, that I don't have what it takes, that people are not going to like me. The only person whose opinion of me that matters is my own. So if I have a negative opinion of myself, like I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, then guess what? I'm going to attract people into my life that mirror that back to me. But the reality is nobody can hurt my feelings unless I give them the power to do that. See, nobody has the power to control my thoughts, feelings, words, or actions. Nobody can tell me how I feel about myself. Now, the problem is when I get upset, if somebody criticizes me or says something negative, if I'm upset by that, it's usually because I am secretly afraid that they're right, that what they say about me is true, that I didn't do it right, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable, or whatever it is. So the only reason I'm upset if somebody treats me in a negative way or says something negative about me or criticizes me or rejects me is because they're mirroring back to me my secret beliefs about myself, and they may not be so secret, actually. So what we want to do is begin to be aware of that and to recognize that nobody has the power to hurt us unless we give them that power. Nobody can hurt my feelings. Nobody can make me feel less than. Nobody can make me feel good enough, not good enough, unless I give them the power to do that. And I'm not really giving them the power. I'm really reacting to my own negative thoughts and beliefs about myself. I'm not really reacting to what they're saying or doing. I'm reacting to my own, because if I feel really good about myself, and I've had this experience now many times or several times at least, I actually don't get criticized that much. All the stuff I was so afraid of, it never really happens. I've received very little criticism, especially as an adult. But the few times that it's happened, it goes right off me because I don't necessarily take that on as the truth about me. Now, I want to be open-minded. If somebody has feedback for me that might be helpful, great, I can hear that. I can listen for that. I can let that in. This is about having healthy boundaries. We're going to talk about this in Chapter 7. Letting information in that may be helpful, but rejecting the stuff that's personal or that's mean or mean-spirited, or somebody is just projecting their own self-loathing onto me, or somebody's jealous of me or envious of me or whatever. So I don't have to let that stuff in, but I can let in valid feedback. So when I love myself, when I feel good about myself, nobody has the power to hurt me. Nobody has the power to make me feel bad. Because I don't give my power away. I've already decided how I feel about myself. So it really doesn't matter what anybody else says or does or what anybody else thinks of me. The other thing we say in this chapter is what other people think of me, it ain't none of my business. It doesn't matter what other people think of me. So that's when I'm in my power. And my power, my true power, is the ability to consciously choose and or change, this is from Chapter 3, my thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. So when I can consciously say, it doesn't matter what you think of me, I already think good things about me. I already like who I am. I already feel good about my work, my photography, or whatever it is, or something I've written, or my book, or whatever. So once I make that decision, nobody has the power to hurt me. Nobody has the power to make me feel less than, unless I give them that power. All right. Number 3, self-love. All right, now, if you weren't here at the beginning of the workshop, I did a recommended reading for next week, and that recommended reading. We're actually going to have the author, all right, Karina Shea, is going to be here next week to talk to us about her book, which is Loving Yourself into Being by Karina Shea. All right, she's going to be here next week, so don't miss next week's workshop. She's actually going to be she's going to be reading to us from her book. Her book is actually a book of poems, beautiful book, and she is going to take us through a process on self-love and all this great stuff. So the way I define self-love is how much I love myself when I least like who I'm being. Now, this comes from the notion that, it's really easy to love myself when I'm doing all the things I think I'm supposed to do, when I feel like I'm, in charge of my life, when I feel like I'm productive at work, when I feel like I'm successful in some sense, when I feel like I'm attractive or whatever. That's easy. It's easy to like myself. It's easy to love myself under those conditions. But you know what? When I can't do any of that stuff, when I'm not showing up for my business, when I'm not doing what I think I need to do to be successful, to move my life forward, when I'm grumpy, when I'm a jerk to other people, when I look at my bank account and it's not where I think it should be, it's how I treat myself in those situations that's the truest measure of how much I love myself. And, self-love, we talked about this when we talked about chapter 4. For me at least, it turns out, it starts with just being nicer to myself. Because for most of my life, I was just really hard on myself. And I was always beating myself up for my mistakes, for my shortcomings. I was very unforgiving of myself. I was very unkind to myself. And that created a lot of stress, created fear in me, the fear of self-recrimination, which became a big problem in terms of moving my business and my life forward. So self-love starts with just being nicer to myself. And ultimately, I treat myself the way I would treat somebody that I really loved, which means I cut myself a lot of slack now. And it is just really being nicer to myself and treating myself kindly, speaking gentle, encouraging words, encouraging myself instead of cutting myself down. See, I used to believe, and I think a lot of people believe this, that I have to be hard on myself so I'll be better, so I'll do a better job next time. And that may work for other people, but I find it doesn't work for me. Self-hatred, I don't believe self-hatred makes anybody a better person. We're going to talk about this in a second. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. What we want to do is learn from our mistakes, obviously, but then forgive ourselves for them. Instead of beating myself up for my imperfections, for my shortcomings, for my foibles, whatever it is, I want to find a way to make it safe enough when I do fail, when I do make a mistake, when I do come up short. I want to find a way to make it safe enough that I will try again. Because to achieve whatever we want to achieve in life, it often takes more than one try. That's why they say, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Well, you know what? If I'm beating the crap out of myself for being less than perfect or for making a mistake, I'm not going to want to try again. I'm not going to want to put myself out there where I could possibly fail again. So what we want to do is make it safe enough for ourselves to take whatever actions we need to take in the world. And for me, again, the only way I can do that is remove the self-recrimination, remove the self-flagellation, and replace it with self-congratulation, self-love, self-forgiveness, and all that good stuff. All right, and then the last thing, we talked about this. Love is not a feeling. Affection is a feeling. Joy is a feeling. Warm personal regard is a feeling. Those are feelings. For me, love is a decision. Love is a choice. All right? So as I was saying a minute ago, loving myself when I least like who I'm being, That's a decision, guys. That's a choice. And for most of my life, I couldn't make that choice. I made the other choice, which was to hate myself when I didn't like who I was being. So it's a decision, it's a choice. Yes, love, we do have emotions that are based in love, and it feels good and it feels warm and all of that. But I think for me, it's been helpful to understand that love and happiness, and as we'll find out in chapter 7, forgiveness, they're all decisions. They're all choices that we have to make. All right? At this point in my life, and I've lived a little bit of life so far, love is not just something that happens when the stars align. We have to choose love. And it's easy to love other people when they're being who we want them to be. I don't have to tell anybody who's a parent, or who's married, that it's really easy to love the other person when they're being or doing what we want them to be or do. The truer test of our love, how big our love is, can we love that person when we least like who they're being? Can we love our spouse when we hate who they're being? Can we love our children when they're just, they're acting out or they're crazy or, whatever it is, can we still love those kids? So that's why I say love is a choice, love is a decision. All right? On to chapter 5, decision-making and the desire to feel better. All right? Every child needs to know two things: that their parents are okay and that the child matters. Now, I didn't make this up. John Bradshaw actually talks about this in his books. I think it was in Homecoming where I first read this, but it makes a lot of sense. Even the youngest child has this instinct about whether or not their parents are okay, and when we say that the child matters, we say that the child is loved by the family, by their parents. And there's a good reason for that. If the parents are not okay, or if the child doesn't matter to those parents, that child is not going to survive. If you really think about it, it's a survival instinct that children have. So children know when, there's a problem with one of their parents. Could be emotional, could be psychological, could be physical. At some level, the child is aware of that. Now, obviously, as infants, not a lot we can do. But the interesting thing is, in number 2 on this list, you see children will naturally attempt to compensate for their parents' dysfunction. Again, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, children will naturally try to compensate for that because their survival is at stake. If mommy really can't get her act together and make dinner that night or clean the house or feed the child or whatever, the kid may not survive. And at some level, we know this as children. We sense this. So it's part of our survival instinct. So we will naturally compensate, and there's lots of different ways we do this. I don't have time to get into it now, but it is in chapter 5 in the book. We find ways to compensate for our parents' dysfunction or whatever it is, and or if we don't feel like we're loved. If the child doesn't feel like they matter, the child will do anything to get attention, including negative behavior. The children will act inappropriately just to know that their parents care about them. If kids don't get enough positive attention, then they're going to do stuff to get negative attention, and it's not because they're bad kids, it's because they need to know that their parents care. And getting yelled at is better than nothing. Getting scolded, at least they know that the parent cares about them, notices them. And then what happens is we compensate. Now, to the extent that our parents are not okay, and I say in the book, parenting is the toughest job on the planet. Every person I know who's a parent, including my own parents, certainly did the best they could with what they had. My parents loved me very, very much in the best way that they could. And they didn't have a lot of the skills. They didn't have a lot of the experience. My mother was 22 years old when she had me. My dad was 24. nobody, especially back in those days, nobody really taught people how to be a parent, what parenting involved. And so they did the best that they could. And, there was stuff that was very difficult for me. And there were messages that I received that were not intentional in any way. There was no intention to harm me, but they really affected me in a negative way. So a lot of the messages that I received were well-intended, but I got confused. And I came to certain conclusions about myself as a result. And a lot of that negative stuff was really, it's just based on the misperceptions of a 6-year-old. And I can see now there was a lot of misunderstandings on both parts. On my part as well as on my parents' part. So, our parents, they do the best that they can. Most are very loving, patient, kind, caring. A lot of parents sacrifice things for their children. So this is not in any way an indictment of our parents or us as parents. And, for me at least, I can see now that I tried to compensate in certain ways for what was lacking in those relationships. And I came to certain conclusions about myself, and it affected me throughout my life. So what I say here is, we naturally attempt to compensate for our parents' dysfunction, and then this idea that, number one, we need to know that our parents are okay, and two, that we matter to our parents, to our family. Those translate into the two core questions that most of us face throughout our lives. And the first question is, am I safe? And the second question is, am I loved? And I know for me in my own life, and I see this in other people, these questions come up a lot in our lives. And the point is, they direct our decision making. A lot of the things that I've done throughout my life, which turned out to be kind of dysfunctional in certain ways, were my attempts to either feel safe or loved in certain situations with certain people. So this feeling of insecurity, either I'm not safe or I'm not loved, that directed a lot of my decision making throughout my life and the choices that I made. And so when we talk about in chapter 5, we talked about the basis of every choice or decision is a desire to feel better. Okay, everything we want, everything we do, all of it is designed, every choice and decision is designed to feel better. Now, originally I started out, I said, well, there's one thing that runs all our choices and decisions, and that's we want to feel good. But that's not entirely true. Feeling good is relative. We'll talk more about this in a minute. But this idea of feeling good, it's relative. And so what we really want is to feel better in every situation. So everything we choose, everything we do is designed to feel better in one or more areas of our lives. And we talked a lot about this when we talked about chapter 5. I'll come back to it in a minute on a couple of other points. But the thing I want to say now is, most of the time, I speak for myself, most of the time the choices that I made in my life, especially when I was feeling insecure, either about whether or not I was going to be safe in that situation or whether or not I was going to be loved in that situation, I wanted to feel better on one or both of those measures. I wanted to feel more safe. I wanted to feel more loved. Now, the problem was I didn't have a lot of conscious awareness about what was going on, about why I was feeling the way I was feeling, why I was thinking what I was thinking. So a lot of my choices and decisions were dysfunctional and often backfired or did not yield good results. And anybody who's familiar with 12-step programs, we talk about character defects, defects of character. In my experience, those defects of character are dysfunctional ways of taking care of ourselves and our relationships. It's our attempt to feel loved or to feel safe in situations when we don't know another way. So a common example for me would be control. I often, especially in my romantic relationships, I would try to control the other person. Now, I did this not because I'm a bad person. I did this because I didn't know how else to take care of myself in that relationship. So I would try to control or manipulate so I could feel safe in the relationship, or so I could feel loved. I had no idea at the time that that's what was driving me, and I had no idea that my choices and decisions were dysfunctional. I was just doing the best that I could to try and make things work out. And of course, the higher the stress, the higher the uncertainty, the worse the choices and decisions I would make. So as I began to look at this and look at some of these other survival strategies, control, manipulation, dishonesty, inconsideration, actually I have a whole, judgment, control, as I said. I have a whole list of actually these character defects that I would rely upon. This was my way of trying to take care of myself. Again, I wasn't a bad person because I was dishonest. I've seen this in other people, especially in children. I know a couple of situations where children, I notice that at a certain age they start to be dishonest. Not because they're bad kids, but in one particular situation that I'm thinking of, I know that if that kid told the truth, that kid would get their ass kicked. They would get their butt handed to them. So we learn at a young age to try to take care of ourselves with these dysfunctional strategies. And we see other people doing it, so we kind of mirror what they're doing, but we're never really aware of what the true problem is. So that's why I keep coming back to this idea that there's these core questions that run our lives. Am I safe? Am I loved? And of course, am I acceptable? Am I going to be okay? Is this going to work out for me? Is this going to be painful? If we're not aware that that's what's running our lives, we're going to make choices and decisions trying to compensate for all of that. And for many people, if you're like me, my life was a huge mess as a result of that. So keep in mind that in every situation, we're making a choice or decision because we think we will feel better if we do or have that thing. All right. Continuing with chapter 5, disappointment. So quite simply, disappointment is when we're expecting something to make us feel better, and it doesn't. Now again, what's really important to remember is that what will, in terms of how lovable or how safe we feel, it's always a function of how we see ourselves. It's always a function of who we think we are. Remember earlier in the workshop I was saying that if I feel good about myself, if I love myself, then it doesn't matter what other people think about me. It doesn't matter if somebody criticizes me. It doesn't matter if somebody rejects me. Those things don't necessarily feel good, but they don't have to be devastating. They don't have to ruin my life. Oh, that person doesn't like me. That person rejected me. I didn't get that job. I didn't sell that photo. I didn't get into that show or exhibition. I didn't win that award. When I feel good about myself, when who I think I am is good enough, when who I think I am, when how I see myself is valuable, worthy, talented, a good person, then all that stuff doesn't derail me. That negative stuff, it doesn't take me off track. So remember, how loved I feel or how safe I feel is always dependent on who I think I am in that situation, how I see myself in that situation. If I think I can take care of myself, for instance, if I'm in a job and my boss yells or screams when he's not happy, if I think I can take care of myself in the office with the boss when he's yelling and screaming, not that that's appropriate or, that's a whole other discussion, whether or not he should be yelling or screaming. But the point is, if I feel like I can take care of myself in that situation, then I'm going to have one reaction. If I'm afraid that I can't take care of myself, or if I'm afraid that this means I'm a bad person, or if I'm afraid this means I'm going to lose my job and all that other stuff, I'm going to have a whole different reaction. And I'm going to do whatever I have to do to feel safe or to feel better in that situation, which if I'm not aware of what's running me, it could be dysfunctional. I could lie to my boss. I could try to blame somebody else for the problem. I could try to manipulate. I could try to control. I could hide out. I could avoid. There's a lot of things I can do when I'm coming from that place of not knowing that what I want to do is feel better. And the reason I feel bad in the first place is because of how I see myself. So as I begin to change how I see myself, I begin to change how I see the world. And I begin to change how I interact with other people. And the stuff that used to ruin my day or my life doesn't do that anymore. All right. So there's no such thing as a bad choice. I alluded to this a few minutes ago. There's no such thing as a bad choice or wrong decision if we're willing to do two things. Number one, learn from our mistakes, and number two, forgive ourselves for them. All right, so I was saying this earlier. If I'm, to the extent I'm willing to love myself when I least like who I'm being, to that extent, then there's really no such thing as a bad choice or wrong decision. Because if I make a mistake or if I screw something up, I can learn from it, so I won't do that next time. And since I didn't beat myself up, I didn't further dig that hole of self-loathing, of self-hatred, of not good enough. I didn't feed the negative voices in my head that say that I'm not a lovable person, I'm not a good person, whatever. All right? So there's no such thing as a bad choice or wrong decision if we learn from our mistakes and forgive ourselves for them. And then the last point on chapter 7, although there's chapter 5, although there's a lot more in this chapter, obviously, is if you want to know what you value in life, look at where you spend your time and where you spend your money. Now, again, the example that I gave in the book, I talked about a couple of things, but what happened was I started to track my money and I started to track my time. I would literally keep a written record of my money and my time. And what I found was that I was, so why are time and money indicators of value? Well, it's right there in the word that we use. We spend money and we spend time. Spending means we value something. You know, we only spend on the things that we value in our lives. So when I started to track my time and track my money, in particular with regard to my time, I found that I was valuing things that were not serving me. The example I give in the book is I was valuing watching television for hours during the week, during the day, during the week, as well as playing video games. Now, as I say in the book, there's nothing wrong with television, there's nothing wrong with video games. Those are valid leisure time activities, but the problem was what I was using them for. And what I was using them for was avoiding getting my business going, getting my photography business going. This is when I made that transition from being a lawyer to a photographer. So I was using those activities as a way to avoid doing what I needed to do to move my life forward. So I was valuing things that were not serving me. Now at the time, I wasn't really aware of that. I thought, oh, I'm just having a good time. I liked playing Angry Birds. And, but it was escapism and not in a good way. So my suggestion is, if you want to know what you value, look at where you spend your time, where you spend your money, and then ask the question, is this really serving me? Again, there's nothing wrong with almost anything. It could be a valid leisure time activity, whatever, unless it's not serving us, and if it's something that we're using to avoid what we need to get done in life. All right. So we're, as usual, way over time. Oh, let's just look at the assignment real quick. Discuss the difference between fear and caution, and then discuss the difference between feeling good and feeling better. All right, we'll talk about that when we come back. I'm going to play the song. For anybody who's new, this song is Love My Life by Robbie Williams. You can find it on YouTube. Ironically, we can't play it on YouTube because of copyright issues, but I'm going to play the song. The lyrics are going to be on screen, so you can sing along at home. We'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, we're back. Love my life, baby. Okay, so let's take a look at our exercises for tonight. So again, discuss the difference between fear and caution and feeling good and feeling better. Give some examples. So who wants to kick us off here tonight?
I'll say.
Go ahead, Didi.
So I feel good when I make money, and I feel better when I make money. So I've been feeling a lot better making money. And in addition to that, this whole process, I'm committed to getting through finishing chapter 7 with you and getting through the forgiveness process, because I'm on board. I'm totally committed to becoming an expert, a master at forgiveness for myself and other people. So appreciate you and everybody who's here, Pass.
All right, great. But not so quick, Didi. I got a question for you. So what is it? So in terms of our discussion of feeling good and feeling better, what is it about money that has you feeling better? What does money represent?
For me, it's freedom, power, choice, shiny objects, it's all of that, but particularly freedom, power, and choice, which I so value. I've always had money. I've never had a money issue, and then I did. So it's like relearning how much I appreciate and value freedom, choice, and what was the other word I used?
Well, I'm going to give you a word. How does this word sound? Security.
I love that word. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
So that fits in with what we're talking about. So am I safe?
Right.
Okay. When I have money, I equate that with feeling better because I feel more secure. I have freedom. I feel powerful. I have more choices.
Right.
All of that goes along with feeling better. And in particular, feeling better on, am I safe? And I guess, am I loved? Now, remember, so I didn't talk about this tonight, but it's in the book, actually in the second edition. Eventually, we're not, we make it to a point where we feel safe and loved. So then what do we want to feel better on? And feeling better then becomes about having more fun, about having a more self-realized, self-actualized life. And maybe, do things for other people. Not that we don't already do things for other people, but when we're not so consumed, and I relate this to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that triangle that we all learned in for me it was Psych 101 in college. So the bottom needs are the survival needs, and then we have the love needs, and then on top we have the self-actualization, self-realization. In any event, we have an association. So many of us associate money with power, freedom, choice, and security. So if I want to feel better on those fronts, I associate having more money with that. And that's great, and being aware that that's what's driving us, being aware that that's the association we make, then we may have more flexibility. We may be better able to make different choices in terms of how we bring the money into our lives, how we create the money. All right, great. Thank you, Didi. Cynthia, did you want to go?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Didi, and thank you, Peter. For me, the better I have had money, I have had no money. Having money is better than not having money. But the amount of money, I've sometimes had access to a lot of money, either my own or someone else's. And sometimes it was my parents' money and their resources. Other times it was a spouse or friends. But having the wherewithal to create wealth, quote unquote wealth, myself is something that makes me feel better than relying on someone else to provide that. So that sense of well-being, the fact that I created tax sheltered annuities when I was younger, and that I have that income today as a result of what I did years ago, with some good, I mean, there were people that assisted me to do that. It wasn't, I didn't just come up with it myself. I had people that came and said, I can help you have tax sheltered annuities when you're older. That will be an income resource if you, allow me to share with you how to do that. And I said, okay, well, I'm rather skeptical about it, but I'll try it. So I did, and it worked out well. Now I'm wanting confidence, and the confidence would make me feel better about myself. More confidence, I'd feel better, more secure. And I thought I could pay someone to show me how to do that. But it turns out that in the intervening week, I've had a few experiences where I have done something with purpose, not to increase my revenue, but with a reason to do it for free for someone, and felt good about myself, felt good. And my confidence has increased by doing this purposeful series of actions. So I'm like, wow, maybe I don't have to pay someone to increase my confidence. Maybe I am actually doing that on my own this week. So it's been a very profitable week, but in a very different way, like the self-actualization that you're talking about. Thank you.
That's great. Great. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
And again, you're welcome. And again, it's, so having confidence, what does that mean? Well, I feel more secure when I'm confident, so I feel safe. And confident, I often feel, when I feel confident, I feel attractive, I feel lovable. I feel more lovable. So having this thing that we call confidence, it increases me on both. Am I safe and am I loved? Potentially. Now, it was interesting. I talked about self-confidence in the past. I'm not going to get into it a lot right now, but for me, I found that when I was wrestling with this idea of whether or not I need more self-confidence. And I didn't even know what self-confidence, this was back in the day. I didn't even really know what self-confidence was. So I went to the dictionary and I looked up the definition of the word confidence. And the first one or two were, what we all think of, what you were just describing. So more self-assurance, feeling more capable, feeling successful, whatever. But the third definition is what really caught my eye. And the third definition for it was a noun, a confidence was a trusting relationship. In the sense that you have a confidence with somebody and you trust them, to treat you well, to not give away your secret, whatever. And I realized, well, so maybe self-confidence is a trusting relationship with myself. And that has carried me so far now, because it's like, well, what do I have to trust myself to do? I have to trust myself to be nice to myself when I screw things up, when I make a mistake, when I'm imperfect. Trust myself to love myself when I least like who I'm being. So confidence for me, self-confidence, in addition to that other stuff, is this trusting relationship that I have with myself. And as I've shared over and over again, it was the self-recrimination. It was when I was beating myself up, that's what was creating all the fear and anxiety. And as we started off the discussion tonight, fear translates into resistance. Fear means I don't take action. Fear means I don't put myself out there. Fear means, I don't do what I need to do to move forward in my life. So, and for me, what was creating all that fear and all that resistance was that I was beating myself up because I was imperfect. I was hard on myself for my mistakes. I thought I had to hate myself to be a better person, which is completely insane now that I think about it. So the more I can trust myself to be nice to myself when I screw something up or do something wrong, the more I'm going to be willing to try again. the more I'm going to be willing to take healthy risks, the more I'm going to be willing to put myself out there. So that's great. Thank you, Cynthia. You want to say anything else about that?
Thank you.
All right,
I
good.
like it a lot. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Anybody else? So the difference between feeling good and feeling better. The other thing I was going to say was, in the audiobook tonight, we covered this. And that was this idea that sometimes, feeling good, it's on a continuum, and we may be starting out on the really low end of the scale, and so we may be trying to feel better in a really bad situation. So the example that I give is, a parent who yells at their kid at the shopping mall or whatever, and in that moment, you can't say that the parent feels good, probably not, but they are doing what they're doing to try to feel better, trying to get back into control. Maybe, again, am I safe? Is my child safe? Because sometimes the kid is acting in a way that may cause harm for themselves or somebody else. And what happens is we react and we try to feel better in a bad situation. We try to feel more safe. We try to feel more loved, and we react and we cause more problems than we solve sometimes. So just to be aware of that. So that's the difference between feeling good and feeling better. All right, sometimes, as I said, we're in a bad situation, and we can't say that we feel good, but we're still doing what we're doing to feel better. And then the other is the difference between fear and caution. So for me, I talk about this. We talked about this at the beginning of chapter 4 a few weeks ago, actually a couple of months ago now. And it's this idea that fear is often an irrational response to the situation. Remember, fear is situational. So the feelings of fear come up in relation to specific people or specific situations. And for me, fear is often irrational. It's often it's often not proportional to the situation. And so when I'm reacting from fear, I can overreact, I can underreact. It's not in proportion to what's actually going on. Caution, and again, I'm not saying we shouldn't, use common sense. I'm not saying we shouldn't use caution. Caution is a proportional, rational response to the situation that we actually face in that moment. Now, the only way I can have a proportional, rational response is if I have an idea about myself which says I can handle this, which says I'm going to be okay, I can figure this out. I may not exactly know how it's going to go, I may not know exactly what to do right now, but I can figure it out. I can ask for help, I can do whatever I have to do. So I have some sense that it may be difficult, it may even be a little unpleasant, but I'm going to be okay. In that situation, I can have a rational, proportional response to the vicissitudes of life. So caution is when we look both ways before we cross the street. It's when we check out all the details before we make an investment. It's when we wear a seatbelt when we drive. That's caution. Fear is, oh my God, this is going to be horrible and I'm screwed. And so I may as well, hide out from life. I may as well, pick a fight with this person. I may as well lie or manipulate or whatever. And I just get overwhelmed with that feeling of fear. And so I don't make my best choices or decisions. Again, all of this is about making better choices and decisions in our lives. So if I'm being run by fear, which is irrational, which is out of proportion, which is going to create more problems than it solves, then I'm going to have one experience. Whereas if I have a better sense of myself, then I'm going to be okay. I'm powerful. I can take care of myself. I can figure this out. I can use caution, and then I'll have a much different experience. So that was my take on the difference between fear and caution. Who else? Anybody else want to chime in? I know we're a little over time, but Barb, you want to say anything? Or Judy? Judy, you want to say anything?
Hear me, Peter?
Now I can hear you.
The thing that stood out for me was when I thought of fear, I thought of paralyzed. I mean, I get paralyzed. And I think of, some of the work I've been doing and really working on getting through the fear so that I can just move forward, and really working on that I don't have to be perfect and it's okay. And that's been really helpful to me versus caution. I mean, I think you gave a very good example of look both ways before you cross the street. Just it's definitely rational thought, taking into account my surroundings. It's not irrational fear. It's not the same as being paralyzed. So I just wanted to add that because that word stands out to me.
Great. Yep, I totally get it. I actually say in the book, fear is a paralyzing emotion. That's the resistance. That's where we can't take the action, where we freeze up. Now, fear is also behind the fight or flight response. But as I say again in the book, most of the time our lives are not really in danger, yet we react as if they are. And fear can be, it can be motivating in some situations, but for me at least, and it sounds like maybe for Judy too a little bit, it can be a paralyzing kind of thing. We can't take action, we can't move forward. Barb, I know you wanted to go. Did you want to say something?
No, I mean, it's just good to hear. Remember I told you I switched or have changed from being very angry to the emotions that come out now are a lot of fear and or anxiety or things like that. And it's just strange. And I'm sure, we could all figure out a reason why. It's just, these are the things I've got to work through. And I think with talking and everything, then you can just get into rational thinking. You can help yourself with anxiety. And, I don't know if that's right to compare fear and anxiety, but it is similar. I mean, there are times where I was going to go for a haircut and I couldn't make the decision whether or not I wanted to. And I mean, the anxiety, the fear over this, well, should I do it next week? Oh, maybe not. I was like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? So I'm like, what's going on with me? And I would love to eventually work all that shit out. So I will use the caution word from now on, or just comfort, or I liked Cindy's word of confidence. And, when that pops up, I don't know, do you call it fear, anxiety, kind of the same thing?
Well, yeah, no, what I was going to say is anxiety is a form of fear.
Yeah.
Anxiety is more kind of a low level. That's what I was saying. So we may have anxiety, we may have dread, foreboding. Those are kind of low level but constant versus the terror or the fear, the anxiety, the strong anxiety in a moment when we're faced with something that's scary or whatever.
Right.
But anxiety is definitely a form of fear.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying. And so I'm going through that, and it's nice to hear ways to cope with it.
Well, remember, it's always how we see ourselves. So as I change how I see myself, if I think I can handle the situation, I'm going to react one way. If I think I can't handle the situation, then it's probably going to be a lot of fear that's driving my decision making.
A haircut?
So
really? I'm kidding you. I'm saying, yeah, I know.
Well, think about it. I mean, why else would you be reacting that way?
I'll have to think about it. I don't know.
Now, here's the other thing. We're going to find out in the next chapter, and I've alluded to this in the past, but we're going to find out that behind all our anger is really fear. So here's the problem. When we stop being so angry, then the fear comes up, because we use the anger to suppress the fear. Anger is a way to feel powerful. Anger is a way to try to take care of ourselves, to protect ourselves. The only reason I want to protect myself is because I must be afraid of something. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this need to protect myself and react with anger. So the good news is you have less anger. The bad news is now you got to deal with the fear.
Correct.
So it's good to begin to notice that. It's good to begin to kind of question it, talk about it, look at what may be driving you to what is it about what do I think? Often for me, I would make the stakes so high for stuff that's what was creating the fear. It was like, even something as simple as going to the post office, I used to get so stressed out about it because I made the stakes so high in my mind. It sounds crazy when I say it, but I really used to have a lot of, it was like, I don't even know what the anxiety was, other than it was like I wasn't in control. I didn't know if the line was going to be too long. I didn't, it was like, did I have all the right postage on it? Did I have it, was it packaged the right way? I mean, it sounds crazy, but those were all ways that I could fail. And the price of failing as a kid was so high that I was traumatized by that. So making a mistake, failing, making a mistake, that creates fear. And the fear creates resistance, anxiety, and all of that. But it was all based on how I saw myself in that situation. If I thought I was going to be okay no matter how I packaged my package, or if I thought I was going to be able to take care of myself even if I had the wrong postage on it, then I wouldn't have all that anxiety. So as I change how I see myself, I change how I see the world, and I still use common sense, I still use caution. But I'm not paralyzed with that overwhelming, irrational fear that used to follow me everywhere. All right, want to say anything else about that?
No, thank you, Peter.
All right, good. Anybody else? All right, so I'm going to play the song again. We'll come back for our final goodbyes. And I want to remind you about what we're doing next week, so don't go away. All right. So again, just a reminder for next week, we have a special treat for you guys. All right. Karina is going to be here next week to talk about her book, Loving Yourself into Being, Karina Shea. You can get a copy of this book on Amazon. It's actually a book of poetry. And Karina's big message, which is why I want to have her speak to us, is about self-love. She had a high-level corporate job, and she quit her life and traveled around the world on her own to fall in love with herself. So beautiful poetry in this book. She has a wonderful story, and she's going to lead us through a process as well. So get here on time next week, and her book, as I said, you can get it on Audible, you get it on Amazon, and she's going to do a great workshop for us. All right, so that's next Wednesday, March 24th at 7:30. All right, and invite your friends. Anybody want to say anything before we wrap it up? You guys are doing great. I love the progress that I see in all of you. Anybody want to say anything?
Thanks, everybody. Oh, and if you haven't listened to the podcast, what's it called? Somebody Joy?
Fit for Joy.
Yeah, it's really, 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 really well done. I think you did an amazing job. And she asked you terrific questions that really helped the whole situation. I loved it.
Great. Thank you, Dee Dee. She actually has a whole catalog. She's got like hundreds of great interviews, podcasts. Fit for Joy. Anybody else?
No, I was just going to say happy St. Patrick's Day. I think that's where you have a green sweater on and everything, right?
Yeah, it's actually as close as I get. It's not really green, but.
All right, but I noticed it. So happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks.
All right, you too. All right, guys. So have a great week. I'll see you next Wednesday. Remember, be bigger than you think you are today and every day. And I want to hear all about your victories next week, all right? Take care.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, you're welcome.